as JV told. So, but anyway, so I would like to thank you, the whole organizing committee, to inviting me for this nice webinar series. So today I will be talking about, as Javid said, like I will be talking about more on nanoelectronics and how to use the nanoelectronics for real life applications. So can you see my screen properly?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So you might have like attended a lot of lectures. People are talking about spectroscopy and like X-ray diffraction and a lot of like other nanomaterials, their characterization. So today I'm going to talk about like little bit more practical, like how can we use the nanoelectronics to make it more useful. Like everybody is using nanoelectronics in our smartphones, our computers, but like can be used for that for medical field, so maybe some of you already aware, but I think this kind of technology, even it was new for me when I started my PhD. So in 2012, like I just got exposed first time with the biology thing. Before that I was like very scared about the biology. So once I started learning, then it becomes like very interesting. So I felt it very interesting, and it keeps growing and growing when I joined my first postdoc and second postdoc. So I will share some of the things like I learned during my journey from PhD to my postdoc. So I will start with like, can you stop this? The pop-up window is creating some problem, I think.
सर
I'm
आप
not.
उसको आप नीचे मिनिमाइज कर दिए सर, आपके नहीं आएगा.
Okay, I'm not able to hold it, I think.
ड्रैग करके डाउन कर दिए सर उसको, तो नहीं आएगा फिर.
Yeah, one minute. I'm not able. Okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah, now I got it. So my outline of my talk today is, so first I will talk about like what are the biosensors and how they work. Then I will go forward like how the field effect transistors can be used for the biosensing applications. Somebody is making some designs. Hello?
हेलो.
Somebody is like drawing something on the screen.
परमिशन तो नहीं है किसको भी करने का कुछ भी. जस्ट आई एम सीइंग दिस ना, स्क्रीन शेयरिंग परमिशन किसको नहीं है.
Sorry. Okay, then I will talk about like how the graphene can be used as field effect transistor to make the like more efficient biosensors, and how to use them for different protein detections and bacterial and viral detections. Then I will briefly introduce about like how these like these devices can be used as a single molecule biosensor. And then I will summarize like what we talked about. So I will start with like why a biosensor? Why do we need a biosensor in the beginning? So, and as everybody knows now, like we are online because of the COVID, So what COVID requires, like how the testing of the COVID done, which is the like very important part, because right now I think all the countries in the beginning they have suffered with the testing because they are not able to test all the patients at a time. So that's is like creating the problem. So the first test is done like, which is very common and more accurate, is the PCR based. So PCR based, it's like they take out your like, so they take out, collect the sample from your like body, and then they they have to like basically process the virus from the sample, and after processing the sample they have to extract the DNA from that, and the DNA get like the RNA, sorry, the RNA get converted into the DNA, and then they amplify. So it takes like around 2 to 3 days. Like it's a long process, and you can see in our country, like sometimes people get weeks to get their reports. And another is the antibody test, which we have. I have also heard in the news like India bought a lot of antibody kits from China, and they were not accurate, and like we have to return them back. So, but the advantage of these antibody tests, like you can have the test in 1 hour. So you just go to the hospital and get it done. So I think that is very efficient. So the process, like, so these are two processes I am showing here. So first is the molecular test, which is nucleic acid based. So it means like the sample is collected in the swab, cotton swab from your nose, and then it has been diluted in an like dilute solution, and then they convert the RNA to the DNA, because the machines are made for DNA sequencing, not for RNA sequencing, because RNA cannot be sequenced. So RNA is only single stranded form, so it cannot be double stranded. Then they sequence the DNA, and then with the primers and the nucleotides, and then they make it. Then they analyze the results, like what kind of profile you are getting. So these like coronavirus has a different kind of mutated RNA. So you have to analyze the data, like whether it is present there or not. So that's why like it requires like a lot of in between process and very expert analysis to exactly know like whether you have the virus or not. And on the other hand, the antibody test is very simple. It has like a 2 electrode geometry, and it has a like cover on it which can filter the solution from your body, the sample collected, the blood, and then the antibody. So what happens, like when the virus, somebody is get infected with the virus, so our body is already immune to whatever is created in our body. So our body creates the antibodies, the respective antibodies. So somebody is infected, then it creates the antibodies, and we collect from the blood sample, and those antibodies, we already attach the related antigens on the electrode surface on this chip, and one is we take another like cross antibodies. Those should not react with the already present antibodies. So and then so there are two lines. One is positive test line, and second is like negative test line. Same like a pregnancy kit. So when the antibodies are present, they will bind over here, and if the antibodies are not present, they will not bind on the right side. So that tells us like whether it is positive or not. The problem is that like those are infected very recently, they might not have grown with the antibodies. If the antibodies are not grown, but people are still infected, so that's why like these results were not very accurate, and people have to rely on the first test, which takes like 2 to 3 days. So for rough analysis, rough estimate, this is okay, but this is not very accurate. And also like it still takes like to expert to use it. Like you have to take your like the collecting the blood sample is also not like everybody cannot do that. So the another thing like I want to show like the glucometer. So here we have the glucometer, and everybody knows like the glucometer can be bought from the shop or the like chemical store, and it can be used by everybody. You just pick your blood and just put it on the chip holder, and the digital meter shows like how much glucose you have. So the challenge is that like can we make something like this for for our future, like which can detect like the virus or bacterial infections. Like sometimes like a lot of people get bacterial right now, like everybody is focusing on virus, but there are a lot of bacterial infections are going on in our country or in all countries. And now bacteria, like we are taking a lot of antibiotics, so the bacteria are getting more like antibiotic resistance, so you cannot kill the bacteria from the antibiotics. So to identify them in the early stage, it's very crucial as well. And the third thing is the cancer. Even like we don't know right now, but because of the this coronavirus, but I think millions of people are getting died with the cancer, and there is no cure, because and there is no process which can detect like cancer in very early stage when it is started having in our body. So so I'm going to talk about like some technologies which can be a like very good future technologies to detect like these kind of these kind of like diseases. So 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 the biosensors are here. Like what is the biosensor? Like as I saw, the glucometer is a type of biosensor. But the thing is that like glucometer is, so the glucose is like is a different kind of small molecule. So it can be, so when we talk about like the big particles like virus, bacteria, these are in like virus in nanometer size, like 200 300 nanometer, and bacteria are 1 micron size. So big particle, and the proteins like those are 13 to 20 nanometers. So the transport of those proteins becomes very critical. That is why the glucose kind of glucometer cannot be used those proteins, and also they required some specific binding elements. So the elements of the, so if you see here the biosensor, so in the left side you see like these are different kind of samples we can use these in the biosensor. Cell cultures having the bacteria grown in the cell culture tube, and then we can have the body samples like blood, urine, saliva, food samples, and then some environmentals like air, water, pollutant, and the soil, everything. So the main like the elements of the biosensor. So for the biosensor, first you should have an transducer. So transducer means like any electronic or like electrochemical device which can produce some signal when your biomolecules attaches to the surface. And but it also requires these bioreceptors. So these bioreceptors are like, so suppose we want to detect a like this currently present virus like coronavirus. So we need the specific antibodies for that virus, so that these antibodies will only interact with that virus, nothing else, because the selectivity is very important. Otherwise, you will get the false positives. So, and they can be cells, they can be nucleic acids. Suppose we want to detect a particular kind of DNA, then you need the opposite DNA probe, which can only bind with the DNA we are interested in. And some of the enzymes, like for suppose for glucose sensor, we use like glucose oxidase. So we have to immobilize the glucose oxidase on these sensor surfaces. And when the glucose comes in, that glucose reacts with the enzyme, and that generates the like hydrogen peroxide and gluconic acid. And that hydrogen peroxide can is converted to the when we break down the when we do the like oxidation of the hydrogen peroxide, reduction of the hydrogen peroxide creates the electrons, and then that electrons can be converted into electrical signal. And at the end, like we can see the electronic system. And if the signal is very small, then we further need the preamplifier, the amplifier which can amplify our signal to display visually, and then the processing, the signal processing, and then ultimately we see the response which can be displayed. So this is the basic elements of the biosensor. So what we learned here so far, for the biosensor, we need an electronic or like electrochemical devices. And these are, and a lot of devices, these are modified with nanowires, nanoparticles, or simple electrodes, or like these field effect transistors, what I will be more focusing on. So, and then second part we need for this biosensor, this is the important part, is like we need the bioreceptors. The receptors, those are particularly selective for bacterial cells or for viral cells, viruses, or for like proteins. So this is very important. But and third is like signal processing. So signal processing, this is the electronics part. So I mean the electronics is very robust. So we can have them in our smartphones. Like if you right now people are using artificial intelligence, so you can also like you can, the device can be attached to your body, and people can see from your mobile, like we monitor what we like suppose we are running, then we can monitor like how much calorie we have burnt, so something like that. So then why we use nanoelectronics? So because this can be also, so this is also made like glucometer is not, nanoelectronics is not used in the glucometer. So it can, the microelectronics can also work. But the thing is that for the specific biosensors, the efficiency is very important. So the micro scale devices, they lose the efficiency. So you cannot detect like when the virus is on early stage, or the infection is on early stage, or any like cancer is on early stage. So to improve the efficiency of these devices, we need nanoelectronics. And as you have heard in the previous lectures, when we go from macro scale to nanoscale, the properties are changing all the time. So properties change too much. So we can utilize them for this these kind of, to make these biomedical devices. So another advantage of them is miniaturization. Like when you decrease the size, right now our smartphones and our tablets, our computers, they are going down on the scale. So we can have a small and small and small. So we can have more features in the same device. And third thing is the in vivo recording. If our device is very small, we can put on inside, even inside the body or on the top of the body, anywhere. If they are big, then they cannot be carried out. So, and the fourth thing is the biophysics. So these nanoelectronics are very useful to understand. Suppose we want to understand the physics of these coronavirus or some other kind of biomolecule, like how they behave, what's their specific properties. So that is very interesting. This biophysics is very interesting. You can study the single molecule to understand the physics of those biomolecules. So moving forward with like switching. So the question is like, I talked about the biosensors, I talked about the electronics, but how electronics can be switched to a biosensor? So as you everybody might have heard about like the MOSFET, I think it's a very common device. I think whoever has studied a little bit of electronics, he should be known about this field effect transistors, and they are in, I think everybody should have in their pocket. Like they are there in our mobile phone. They used as a memories. They used as a switching devices. So everybody should have them, and we are very commonly using. So the good thing is that this technology is well established. So we just need to like modify some materials and designs and just use them as a biomedical equipment. So here you can see, so in the, so just briefly introduce, like we have in the MOSFET, we have a bulk semiconductor. We make the source and drain, and have a gap like called channel, like number 4, you can call it channel. So and then we have a top oxide layer, and then we have number 1 at the metal. So what it does, like on metal we apply the voltage, and when we apply the voltage, in the middle we have the dielectric material. So from the capacitive action, so dielectric works as a capacitor. When you apply some voltage, it forms, so suppose we apply some positive voltage, so it will oppositely fall negative charge in this channel, semiconductor channel. And when the you apply more and more and more, so so in the silicon basically, so first, if suppose we have the p-type silicon or n-type silicon, p-type silicon, then what will happen, like it will apply the more field, and at certain amount of field, the negative charge carriers will be generated inducing by the top voltage, and those negative charge carriers will start flowing through source and then at certain source and voltage. So we need to fix the source and voltage, and then the device starts operating. So in the biosensor, what we do, we just replace the top metal part. So whole device is same, we just replace the top metal part, and we make a reservoir, like so that we can fill a small amount of solution. And then you need a reference electrode. So this reference electrode can be made by a metal, and then it is coated by some like silver chloride to make it more standard, so that it should not fluctuate. So we have not changed anything, like just we removed the metal and just we made a reservoir where we can fill the solution. And this, when we fill the solution, so solution interacts with this oxide dielectric, and the dielectric and solution interface, there is like some form of charge, so in the solution, suppose we have hydrogen ions and hydroxyl ions. So those ions will interact at the surface and they form some surface potential. So I will talk more in the next slide. So see, like here, so suppose we everybody knows about the pH meter we have in most of the labs. So how to use that? This is the basic thing, like how to use this device as a pH meter. So what happens when we change the pH from 1 to 3? You can see in the right picture. So pH from 1 to 3, it means we are going from acidic to basic. So we are increasing the number of hydroxyl groups from when we move from pH 1 to pH 13. So these hydroxyl groups creates the negative charge on the surface. And the negative, if you increase the negative charge on the surface, it means, so we are fixing the source drain voltage and we are sweeping the gate voltage. At the all the time, the value is same. So we are not changing any like characterization like values of the input values of the characterization, but we are changing the liquid by changing the pH values of the liquid. So when we change the pH value of the liquid, it generates the surface potential. It changes the surface potential. So suppose we have more hydroxyl ions when we move towards the basic region, so it will create more negative charge on the surface, and we also have the induced negative charge already in our transistor design. So this will reduce the number of negative charge carriers in this channel region. So accordingly, you need more potential to get the threshold voltage. So threshold voltage is the operating voltage of these MOSFETs. So that's how it works. So it seems very simple. Like you don't need to change much in your electronics. So you just replace the top metal part with liquid and a reference electrode, and you can use them as a pH meter very simply. And this pH meter is already in the market. So I will show the picture of this pH meter in the coming slides. So now we understand. So now we need to understand like what is the difference, like our conventional biosensors we have. I mean briefly I already showed with like this PCR based and the antibody based, but there is like very standard technique which you have. I mean you might have heard about from 10th class when I was in 10th, like ELIJA. I was not familiar about the full form of this ELIJA, but it is called like enzyme linked immunoabsorbent assay. So first I will show like how this works basically. So in the ELIJA, you need an ELIJA plate which should be coated with an antibody. So antibody, as I told, like in any biosensor, antibody should be there to selectively detect like what kind of protein we want to, protein or this virus or bacteria we want to detect. And then we need the antigen, which is the target. Like it can be a virus, it can be a protein, it can be a bacteria, anything. So then after that, once this virus or the bacteria directly targets these antibodies, so this can only so these antibodies has been designed to detect only the particular biomarker or particular target. So once they interact, they only grab the virus or bacteria we are interested. They will not attract anything else. So this makes the biosensor very selective. And in the ELIJA, then you need another enzyme tagged antibody. So this enzyme can be a like it can be tagged with a fluorescence or something else. So or this enzyme after further reaction with the substrate. So substrate is called a reagent. So this reagent which it reacts with the tagged enzyme tagged antibody. So this enzyme, when it interacts, it produces the optical signal. Like it can be the color change or it can be a change in the absorbance. So it requires multiple steps. So first we need, like as we talked, first we need an antibody, and then you can detect the target, and then you need another enzyme tagged antibody. And be sure like this antibody should also be very selective to this, the enzyme tagged antibody should also be selective to this virus or bacteria. Otherwise, it will attach at some other place and it will give you a false signal. So it's like very challenging to have like the sandwich, making the sandwich assay, and then you need to add another reagent and then have a big equipment like to measure the absorbance or the color for the quantitative detection of any biomarkers. On the other hand, like if we talk about these FET biosensors, which are the label-free biosensors. So label-free means like this second part when I talked about enzyme tagged antibody. So it means you don't need this labeling, you don't need the substrate. So in this case, like the design I showed you, like the MOSFET, how the MOSFET can be converted into the biosensor. So in the pH sensor, so here even in some of the biosensors in future, like you even don't need the dielectric surface on top of that. Like in the MOSFET, we have the dielectric layer on top, but here even you don't need that dielectric layer. So so you just need a semiconductor, and it is connected with two probes like source and drain, and you can apply a constant voltage and monitor the current. So and then you attach you just need the capture antibody and just need the antigen or like any kind of biomarker you want to detect. So it's only two-step process. You have the antibody attached, and then you can just when the antigen comes in and it gives some charges. So if you are not familiar with like these all most of the antibodies, these biomolecules, they have certain charges if you measure them at certain pH. So all these biomolecules are neutral at particular pH, but they have charge at all other pH. So like these dielectric surfaces or any material, if you put them into the liquid, they will generate some surface charge. So these biomolecules also have some surface charge. So that the property of these charging property of these biomolecules is well utilized in these uh, to make these kind of electronic based sensors. So the advantage of these sensors, like as you know, like they require like very small voltage in like 0.5 volt, 1 volt to operate them, you know, and then you can have the current. So they, as I showed in the glucometer, so you can easily monitor the current in your small device, in your smartphones, if they are successfully made. And another advantage, like they can be miniaturized, they can be made in the small devices and handheld devices, so you can keep them in your home. You don't need to go to the hospital for any testing. So right now, like people are getting like, suppose you want to test a cancer or something, so if you can do it at your home, then people will know, like you can do the test like every year, like everybody in your house, in your home can get tested for the cancer, so that we can avoid the future risk of being cancerous. Or these viruses, right now people are going to the hospitals, even they are not infected, but they get infected because then they go to the hospitals, because the hospitals have a lot of patients and the virus goes out. So if we can avoid that, that will be very useful. So this is the device, like currently if we use the existing device like ELIJA based device, very big, and in future, like if we can develop these kind of biosensors, this will be a very small. So the pH meter is already in the market, so you can see you just need a small amount and you can put on this sensor, and you can even keep this in your pocket, like it's like a thermometer kind of thing. So but these biosensors, like why they are not in the market, they also have some challenges. So the challenges with these biosensors has been so far like their low sensitivity, as I said, like they are charge sensitive. So if the biomolecules are not highly charged, then you might see very small signal. So the basic challenge is to improve their sensitivity. And then so you can see like in this plot, like so you have this, so I'm just showing like the small schematic, small part of those devices. Like you have a semiconductor which is like p-type semiconductor, then you have oxide, and then you have to create the linking group to attach these antibodies. So and then after the antibodies are attached and you bind the cancer biomarker, so it is negatively charged, then it induces more positive charge in your semiconductor. But in the bottom side, you see like the sensitivity is very low. So at 1000 picogram per ml, like so it starts giving some signal, but below that it's very low. So for early stage detection, like for the cancer, if we want to detect when the antigens are very small amount, when disease is on earlier stage, so then we cannot detect these, we cannot use these sensors. And another challenge is like you can see like there are a lot of intermediate linkers are attached, so they also keep these charges far away. So another problem is these sensors, like if these biomolecules are very far from surface, they will not induce sufficient charge to give you the signal. So the signal will not be there until the amount is very high. So I will try to solve like how we can solve these kind of these challenges with the further using nanoelectronics. Another is the stability. So when you, so like you know, like when we dip our phone into the water, it might go bad after some time. So these electronics are sensitive to the real water, like water kind of environment, water or blood or anything. So we have to make a design like so that it should be the area which we want to sense, that should be exposed only with these kind of liquids. So stability is a very big issue with these kind of devices. So you have to be reproducible devices. They should be repeated again and again so that we can get more accurate result. Third thing is reproducibility, like can we fabricate them at large scale? Can we make like thousands or millions of devices in very short period of time, and at low cost as well? Because if the cost is very high, then nobody is going to buy them. And then I talked like this covalent immobilization. So when we attach these linker molecules on the surface, then they also induce some charge. These middle part, if they induce some charge, they also reduce the sensitivity of these kind of biomolecules, these kind of sensors. So we will try to solve like how these 2D materials can solve them. So how to overcome these challenges. So we have like, so there are three things like we can modify. First, we can change the signal by changing the designs. So we can use the electronics like to design the electronics in such a way so that it can amplify the signal by itself. I suppose we have a 10 millivolt signal, we can make it like 70 millivolt or 100 millivolt. Second thing is the material, like some of the new materials like the nanomaterials or some other like very sensitive, high sensitive materials can be used to overcome these challenges. And third thing is like methodology, like method of measurement. So the method of measurement can also change a lot, like how you are collecting your signal and what kind of signal you are focusing on. That can also make it more sensitive. So first I will talk about dual gate. So we talked about like the MOSFET, so single gate. So by that time we were talking about single gate. So we were just like applying the voltage from top and sweeping the top gate voltage and measuring the source drain current and getting the transistor characteristics by sweeping the voltage at particular solution, particular pH. But can be, so if we change the geometry, like can we use the dual gate mode? Like, so we have another gate in the bottom and then we already have the top gate. So but the silicon making this kind of geometry in the silicon is very complicated. So right now people are using like this zinc oxide or this indium gallium zinc oxide. These are like very like easy to use material. They can be done just by sputtering. You don't need any ion implantation, or the silicon growth is done at very high temperature, but these oxides can be deposited at room temperature. So to reduce the cost, we also want to make the fabrication much cheaper. Like there are no silicon industries in our country, so we have to be dependent on other countries if we want to make something like silicon kind of devices. So but this kind of thing can be done in our country as well. You just need it, need a sputtering or thermal deposition system, and oxide can also be deposited thermally, and then you make another top oxide with like sputtering, and then you can make a top metal gate. So the advantage of this, like you can see the bottom equation. So we have talked about like how the threshold voltage get changed when we change the amount of the value of the pH of the solution. So here when we have this kind of like this equation, so it is controlled by the bottom gate voltage. So if the threshold voltage of the bottom, if we want to monitor the threshold voltage of the bottom gate, then and change the top gate. So what happens, like suppose we are monitoring the bottom gate voltage and we applying the top gate voltage. So if you apply like suppose 1 volt on top, and you have the high dielectric constant material like tantalum oxide on the top, which is like dielectric constant of 25, and the bottom one has the dielectric constant of 4. So as you see in the equation, we have C top and C bottom. So this capacitive coupling takes place. So you apply some voltage on top. So in this, because of this capacitive coupling, the ratio is like from 4 by 24. Like the ratio is around like 6 to 7. So accordingly, your threshold voltage in the bottom gate will get shifted. So, and when we put the solution, if the solution is creating like suppose 0.1 volt, so you will see actually like 0.1 volt, you will see like 1 volt. So it will be amplified by 10 times automatically, your signal. So this is the geometry, like by changing the design, you can change it. So this is an excellent idea to enhance the sensitivity of these devices. So during my PhD, I tried like some of them. So designing like this, you have silicon dioxide. So we bought the silicon dioxide. These are very cheaply available. Then you just deposit the indium gallium zinc oxide, the semiconductor. This is an amorphous semiconductor and can be deposited at room temperature, and it's very easy to deposit. And then you made the solvent with just aluminum. Aluminum is a very cheap material, and then you deposit another aluminum oxide with the same machine, like on the top of that, and then you create a reservoir. Reservoir can be any like plastic or anything, like you can make a reservoir which can hold some liquid. So you don't need to make any specific design for the reservoir. You can just drop your liquid on top of that and you can measure it, or encapsulate it with some epoxy or something, like some glue or something we use for our regular purpose. So this 12 gate design has been like very easy to use, and then when we use this, then it amplified the signal is like you can say 347 millivolt per ph. So usually we get like these single gate sensors are like have only 50 millivolt signal, and we have amplified it by 7 times using this design. So this can be like very good design to move forward with biosensors. So right now, like a lot of biosensors are coming up these kind of designs, like using dual gate structures and to make the devices very high sensitive. And also these materials are very cheap, and they can be fabricated. Even they don't need any clean room environment. Like for silicon devices, you need clean room environment. These can be made in our like common atmosphere and at low temperature as well. So the another advantage is like, so here still we need this. You can see this, we still need this top gate dielectric, you know. So as I talked, like we can also remove this top gate dielectric if we want to use like liquid gating. So I don't think like many people have heard about, but it was very new for me as well. So liquid gating is very interesting. So what I did, like you just replace the dielectric also with just this semiconductor. So you don't need any dielectric. So when you go ahead, so you can see in the bottom. So when we put the liquid on this semiconductor surface, so it forms an electric double layer. So if the surface is negatively charged, then it will attract more like positive ions first, and then then in the opposite side, the electrode side, it will attract the negative ions. So if you apply the positive voltage, it will form the positive charge on this surface. So this is basically, and this electric double layer works as a like very thin capacitor. So it has a very high capacitance, but it can act as a gate. It can provide the gating to your device. So in this sense, like we don't need even a dielectric as well. So, and when you make it like this, so and you can operate in the both modes, in the top gate mode and in the bottom gate mode. So when I operated this in the top gate mode, only though its sensitivity is low because semiconductor is not very highly sensitive. So we got 24 millivolt, and when I operated in dual gate mode, I got like 160 millivolts. So this is an interesting structure. So here so far, like we removed, like we don't need to deposit the silicon, we don't need to deposit any dielectric. We just buy this silicon dioxide and deposit this amorphous indium gallium zinc oxide, made the source and with the electrodes, and it become very simple structure to give you the high sensitivity. But this further can be improved. But the challenge is again like attachment of these antibodies, as I talked, it changes a lot in these kind of devices. But the graphene overcomes these kinds of things. So graphene have another advantage, like graphene is very sensitive because, and also it can be attached with non-covalent functionalization. I will show you. Like we have graphene, you know, so, and if we have the pyrene linkers, then pyrene linker have the 4 benzene rings. They can just stack on the graphene. So you don't need to do any electron transfer. So they don't change any property of the graphene when you attach these intermediate molecules before the antibody. Then when you attach the biomolecules with the linker. So these are like high sensitive devices. So the thing is that graphene is single layer. So whatever charge you are inducing, it is completely changing the property of the graphene. So if suppose you have multi-layer system or like bulk semiconductor, then you are changing something on the surface, but the bottom layer of the semiconductor is not experiencing any change, you know. So you will not see the overall shift in the threshold voltage. Or so the advantage of this, like, and the graphene is also pristine, so it is highly sensitive to any of the charges. So this makes the graphene is like very novel material for these kind of making these biosensors, and also it is very robust. Like you can keep them in the water for days or something. And the advantage is that tuning dopant level. So the graphene is like a semi metal, so it can be done. Graphene is a semi metal, so it can be used as a p-type semiconductor or n-type semiconductor. So both kind of doping is possible in this kind of devices. So the I will show like how the drag point. So what is called the drag point is like the point of where the graphene is neutral. So this is the drag point. So graphene has it like density of states in the cone shape. So you can see the bottom is like the hole. If and the balance band and the conduction band, if the both are empty, then it will show the drag point at 0. It means the graphene is neutral. So graphene can be neutral at a time, like when you don't have any like doping. So it will show the drag point at 0 volt. And when you do the doping, like suppose we are creating n-type, so we are increasing like the electrons, then it will shift into the negative direction, the drag point. So this is a plot like resistance versus gate voltage. I will show more these kind of curves in coming slides. And when you do the p-type, like you are inducing holes in these kind of devices, then you are making like the devices p-dopes, you are creating a lot of holes, then it moves forward, the drag point, because you need some positive voltage to deplete those holes. So that's why you need more positive voltage. And the case of electrons, like undoping, you need like more negative voltage to get rid of the electrons to reach to the middle stage. And another thing is integration. So graphene is very flexible, so you can integrate it on any kind of surface or any kind of like electronic devices. So that's another advantage of this graphene. So how do we fabricate? So the graphene, I mean, I'm showing like what I'm doing here, but it's very simple. It can be done outside as well. So here we have the lithography system, and then where we do the spin coating and put the photoresist to fabricate the devices, and then we have the lithography. It writes the photoresist to pattern the what we want, and then we have metal deposition and argon plasma in the left side. In the right side, we have the characterization system. We can do the Raman spectroscopy and AFM to see like whether the graphene is pure or it is like it is not contaminated. And the AFM is done to attach to see the attachment of these biomolecules and the height of the graphene. So this is the whole process like I use like very commonly every day. And these are the devices like when we fabricate them. So these are the devices how look like. We have silicon dioxide, same like as I talked before. Then we have graphene in the middle, and then we have aluminum oxide. So why? So then we have like chromium gold as a source and contact, and then I have the aluminum oxide. So aluminum oxide has been used here like to passivate. Like suppose we want to expose with something, so we don't want to expose the electrodes. Also, we only want to expose the graphene with the liquid. So that's why we need passivation, and then we can use simple platinum wire to apply the liquid. So as I already talked, liquid getting in my previous slides. So the graphene also forms the electric double layer with a thin capacitor, and it can be also get it. At the right side, you can see like this is the device we make. And at the bottom side, like it is also important. Like suppose if your graphene is already contaminated or it is already doped after fabrication, because fabrication requires a lot of steps. So then you might lose your sensitivity. So here is the graphene. So we just made the Raman spectrum before and after fabrication, and we didn't see any movement in these graphene peaks. So it tells us like our graphene remains undoped. And then we used them for detection. So I told you like in the beginning. So we have the bare graphene device, and then when we attach so for this we need the antibody. So here we use the aptamers. So aptamers have the advantage of like they can fall down. So suppose if your target is not charged, they can also detect uncharged biomolecules. So the aptamers, we attach the aptamers. So aptamers are negatively charged. They have like RNA phosphate backbone. So you can see like the drag point I talked before. So when the p-doping is created, then it moves in the forward direction. So these aptamers have negative charge. This CA1 has further negative charge. So this is a protein used for different kind of cancer detection and different kind of like other kind of like diabetic or pancreatic diseases. This is a very important biomarker I studied here. And when you add this biomarker, then it further moves in the forward direction. So this keeps, you can see like I was seeing very small shift, but here you can see like huge shift. So this is like making it very sensitive. So to confirm, like we have attached these aptamers on the graphene surface. So graphene, actually single layer graphene should be 0.3 nanometer, but here we have made it like, but it actually shows like 1.2 nanometer or 1.3 nanometer, because you cannot, because a lot of water molecules can get dried on the graphene or on the bottom of the graphene between like graphene and silicon oxide. That's why the thickness is around 1.2 nanometer, not exactly 0.3 nanometer. But Raman spectra show just like this is single layer graphene. And then when we attach the aptamers, then you can see like a lot of small molecules are attached on this graphene side, and the height is increased from like 1.2 nanometer to like 5 nanometer, 4 nanometer. So we have, so it confirms like the aptamers are attached on the surface, and further it confirmed from the Raman spectrum. So initially in the graphene we have G peak and 2D peaks, and there are a lot of other peaks arises because of these aptamers and the linker molecules. So this further, so it is also important to confirm like you have the right receptors I talked in the beginning, like biomolecules, so that you can attract the interested target you want to detect. And then we performed like, so first we tested in the like normal phosphate buffer physiological solution. And when we saw like this kind of sensitivity from, so it can detect sign like 0.01 nanogram, like it from like 100 picogram to like 100 nanogram per ml. So its concentration, like detection range is quite high. And the signal level is also very high, like 300 millivolt. And before that, we had like only 30 or 50 millivolts in the silicon-based sensors. So, and then further, like, so, but the important thing is that like we also need to test these devices in real clinical samples. So I used these devices in the saliva sample. So we collected the saliva from the hospital and introduced. So saliva should be, so all these biomarkers are present in our body in some amount, but when the disease comes in, the amount of these biomarkers changes, either this increase or decrease, you know. So the monitoring that the value of these biomarkers is makes the difference. So I have seen like in the bottom you can see we have, even without adding any external CA1, we in the healthy patients we also see some amount of CA1 was already present. And when we injected the additional amount of the CA1, so these three lines, this is like actual saliva sample, and then we added the further amount of CA1, then we saw the further increase. So this tested, like we have tested this device, like it can be used for saliva samples and maybe in future for urine samples, but we haven't tested it for direct blood, but for some kind of clinical setting. So moving from, so the previous data we have shown for like the protein detections, which can be cancerous or like diabetic or like the pancreatic related diseases. So here I will talk about more like bacterial infections, like when we get the fever, now every doctor will give us the antibiotics. So because they know like the bacteria are there, you know. So, but they don't test, you know. When we don't test, then we become like the bacteria in our body become antibiotic resistant after some time. Then sometime you see like people get sick for months, you know, and they don't get well after months because the antibiotic bacteria has been grown in our body. So if we have a efficient device which can detect these bacteria, because the bacteria detection takes about like 5 to 7 days to culture them, to collect them from blood, to culture them, and then go to the analysis and detection. It's a long time process and also very expensive. So the advantage of these bacteria, as I talked, like these devices are sensitive to the charge. So these bacteria are negatively charged. You can see in the pH. So our body pH is 7, you know. So so close to our body pH, they all bacteria are negatively charged. So it's a good choice to use them in these kind of devices to study to detect them, you know, because they have the charge and our devices are charge sensitive. So we move forward. The important thing is that, again, I said you like the biorecognition element, like the receptors. So what kind of receptors you want to move forward? So antibodies, aptamers, cells, sugar, or peptides. So the thing is that we want like something should be very small, like, so we can directly, we want to detect the target, not these antibodies, like these receptors. So if we make these big, they will reduce the sensitivity. So we have chosen here the peptides. Peptides are like very small molecules, like they are just 1 nanometer, 1.5 nanometer long. They have like 7 to 14 amino acids. So and when they interact, and so our collaborator here, they created these peptides. They some warhead groups, and these warhead groups are selective to the particular bacteria. So we attach again the same kind of story like pi stacking, attach the linkers and the peptides onto with the linker on the graphene, and then the bacteria comes in, it binds with the peptides, and then it induces the charges. So how the detection process works. So we have a graphene like this. So I'm showing the 2D diagram to just more visualize it better. So we have the bare graphene device, and when we attach the peptides, these peptides are neutral. They don't change anything on the graphene because they don't induce any charge. That's what we want. Like there should be no change in the charge by adding the receptors. And when the bacteria comes in, it induces a lot of negative charge, and then it creates the p doping in the graphene. When the p doping is graphene created, then you will see the movement in the drug point. So here we tested like so advantage of these devices, like what I said, like we can selectively bind these bacteria. So here in the right side we have the control device. We have the peptide which should not bind with the bacteria, and the left side we have the peptide which should bind with the bacteria. And in the middle you can also, so we have took the, after the detection with this electronics, we also took the optical images using our microscopy, and we can clearly see them, like the devices those don't produce any signal, they have no bacteria in the middle, and the devices those produce the signal, you can see the strong shift of like 300 millivolt, we see like 3 bacteria inside. So that's the interesting thing, like we can electronically see them and detect them. And in the bottom, like you can see, like, so our devices should also be tested with the negative. So we have tested with 3 different negative bacteria, and we don't see any signal. And when we use the right bacteria which we want to detect, we see a lot of signal. And more interestingly, like, so now here the nano effect of nano electronics comes in. You can detect even single bacteria. So when we have tested like plenty of devices, and then we categorize them. Some devices had 1 bacteria, some has 2, some has 3, and when we plotted the signal, so you can see when we increase the number of bacteria on the device, it increases. So yeah, so this tells like it is like very sensitive to the bacterial surface because these bacteria are very highly charged. So further we move to, like, the thing is that like when the concentration is also dependent, like suppose if we want to detect the disease at early stage, we need to detect it at very fast. So but these devices were sensitive to at high concentration. Then we use the electric field. So we know that bacteria are very charged. So when we have like a lot of bacteria and we don't apply any field, then they automatically go on the surface, some of them, and you will have the signal. But the challenge comes in when you have like suppose I have only 4 bacteria in the solution, and when I put them down without any field, they will not go onto the device in the middle of the graphene. Then I will have no signal. So if you want to increase that sensitivity, so what we did, like we applied the electric field outside. So when we put the bacteria, we also apply the electric field, and now some of the bacteria will go in. So that further increased our sensitivity of our devices, so that we can, as even few bacteria are present in the body or solution, we can still detect them by applying this electric field. So this technique is called dielectrophoresis. Like we can move the cells into the water by applying the field, and then after that we can detect them using the transistors. So that was the another approach for. And recently I want to show you, like we have like the, not I, but like the people in the same field, these devices has been recently tested for detecting these coronavirus. So the coronavirus has these like envelope and then nucleotides and then standard RNA. So our PCR devices, like which takes 2 to 3 days, they like break these viruses and take out this RNA part, and then they do the sequencing of this RNA to find out the mutated gene. So the mutated gene tells us whether the virus is like coronavirus or it is a different kind of virus. And this is the envelope. But these kind of devices can be used this spike protein. So these spike protein you can directly detect using the graphene transistors. So what people have developed, so they developed a SARS-CoV antibody, as I said, like we need antibody to specifically detect these viruses. And this virus has like the spike protein on the top of it. So you just collect from swab, dilute the sample into the solution, and you take that solution which contains these viruses, and these viruses can directly put on the device, and it will give you the spike in the current signal. So it's like very easy to use if you think about. So here it's like they tested like different amount of. First they used the antibody like the separately, and then they tested it like SARS COVID. Like so, this is like the people is not infected. This is a different kind of COVID, and this is COVID 2, which is like nowadays like it's making a lot of progress in whole world. So when they tested, they got like very huge increase in the current because the antibodies are selective to this SARS COVID. So they will only interact with the SARS COVID virus, not with others. So this is recently published, like just I mean in this month itself, I think. So this tells us like these kind of devices can be like very useful, and it can change the whole world, and everybody can have their own testing kit. So now moving forward, like this nanoelectronics can also be used to study the single molecule. So I talked about a lot of things like about the DNA sequencing, this PCR. So right now we use this PCR this based on like thermal cycling, you know. So you need to increase the temperature to 94 degrees centigrade first. Like we collect the DNA, then we separate the DNA by heating them up at 94 degrees centigrade, then put them down, add the enzyme. So you need like 3-4 steps like to do the DNA sequencing to find out like which kind of DNA present. Like suppose we want to do some verification like DNA verification of anybody, like which is like suppose to find somebody's unknown relative, so we do the DNA sequencing. So and this also the coronavirus is also is now tested by the DNA sequencing. So this, can we make them electronically, you know? So this can be done as well. So you need for this, instead of antibodies, you need a DNA polymerase, which is also used in the PCR technique. So this DNA polymerase is attached to this antibody, this carbon nanotube. So here we have a single walled carbon nanotube. I have two contacts, source and drain, same kind of other transistors, but only thing is that the scale is very small here. So this is like just 1 micron long and 1.2 nanometer in diameter. So when this again, like the as I talked in the pyrene linker, through the pyrene linker, the protein can be also attached on this carbon nanotubes as well. And then you send your DNA straight, and you add the nucleotide. It processes the DNA at certain electric field, and then it can form the chain like this. You see, so this DNTP comes in, the polymerase processes this part, it breaks the OH bonds and attaches the another nucleotide. So suppose we have PET, different kind of like these bottom, like C will like the C will call cysteine, G is guanine, A is adenine, and then T is thymine. So these different kind of DNTPs will bond like whatever bonds are available. So this will give a profile. So in the bottom side, you can see like it gives like small spikes in the current. So what kind of DNA is like the DNTPs we need, it can give you the complete profile. So, so DNA polymerase, so we need a like DNA polymerase to use this kind of technique. So here I can show you like when we attach the DNA, the carbon nanotube, the protein, and you can see on the carbon nanotube is like 1.2 nanometer, and then this is a 4 or 5 nanometer protein is attached on this device. So and we can clearly see, so these are the signals like they arise. So this profile gives us like, can give us what kind of sequence we have. So this technique has been very useful to study these the efficiency of this DNA polymerase, and in future, like we make the array of these nanoelectronic devices, we can use make the chip based sequencing, not this PCR based. So we don't need the big laboratory for that. So I think some of the companies I collaborated, they are already working this. This is called like third generation DNA sequencing technology. So they are already working to come up with this new technology for the DNA sequences, which can make our life much easier. Okay, so let's summarize. Like I think this was the last thing I talked. So let's summarize like what we learned today. So first we try to understand what are the biosensors and why we need them. Like so we need them like to detect fast detection, rapid detection, and low cost detection of these kind of viruses, bacteria, and proteins to detect different kind of diseases. And why then we studied like why nanoelectronics are important. As you have seen, like nanoelectronics has improved the sensitivity a lot, like, and also makes the things very robust and can be used for future technology. And then I have shown like you how to detect the proteins using these devices and bacteria and viruses, and then how to utilize these nanoelectronic devices to study the behavior of single molecule, and it can be very useful for single molecule biophysics. So these some kind of devices I think people in our country, some of I know some people are working, but not many people. So the I would suggest the students those are just studying, use they can use or choose this kind of research. Like this is very different from like our fundamental physicists do. So you can somebody is interested in little bit in the biology, I think they should move forward in their future research. That would be my recommendations. I would like to acknowledge my PhD advisors and the colleagues during at IIT Kanpur, and then my colleagues at Boston College. And so, and the company I am collaborating, Giner INC, we are making these kind of sensors for future technology. And then University of California, my supervisors and my colleagues, and the Illumina INC. Illumina INC is a like world leader in DNA sequencing. So we have collaborated with them to develop this third generation sequencing technology. So thank you everyone for your patience. Now I think I'm done with 1 hour. So we can move forward with the questions.
Thank you, sir. Sanjay Jain is asking what type of biosensor will suitable for COVID-19?
Yeah, so like this, so as I told, this kind of like recently people have made like this paper has just published, so but there are other kind of sensors can be used like just two electrode system like glucometer kind of thing, and then you just attach the antibodies on those, and then you can use them for like technique. But only the challenge is like how they work in the real environment, because if you collect the real sample, there might be some other kind of viruses, they can interfere your signal. So that's the challenge. So you have to use some filtration technology or separation technology to separate like the viruses with the other proteins or something. But these can be very useful. Like these kind of biosensors, what I talked, they can be very useful for future kind of things.
Shobha is asking what may be the cost of these biosensors for COVID-19?
Yeah, so that's so I would say like the graphene, if you want to make the graphene. So I showed you like I made them with like very high-end equipments, But now I know the process. Like they can be, so you can buy the bare graphene, you can just screen print the electrodes on your paper or something, if somebody want to work on, maybe in future I will be working on that. And then you just transfer the graphene. Graphene is very flexible, so it can be put on any kind of surface, and you just put on the middle so you can screen print 3 electrode and you put the graphene on the middle electrode, apply the voltage between two, attach the antibodies or like these aptamers on the graphene surface, and you can move forward with that. So they should be around like, right now it's difficult to predict the cost, but screen printing and transferring the graphene, then it will be very cheap. Like screen printed electrodes we can buy in 50 rupees, so you just need to transfer the graphene. So it will be like maybe within 500 or something.
Asif is asking how to select the sensing material for particular virus.
Yeah, so that's like, so right now if you find some patient with the COVID-19, you can easily find the antibodies with that guy, so so people how generate the antibodies, like cows and mice or something, they inject the virus and you have to raise the antibodies. Or since chemically, if you want to chemically synthesize, then there are masters like in aptamers or peptides, the companies, they can synthesize the aptamers and peptides for you.
Nya Jacob is asking, sir, can you suggest some literature for fluorescence based nanobiosensors?
Yeah, I can send some of them because I have not done, but like the challenge with the like the fluorescence based, why I didn't talk much, because right now all the like these ELISA based techniques are fluorescence based, so we still need equipment like which can detect the fluorescence, so but yeah, I can send some of the papers. I can share some of the papers on fluorescence based.
Udita Jain is asking, are these biosensors are temperature sensitive?
I would say the graphene is not, yeah, but some of them others might have. So you have to be. So what people do, like we also attach a small temperature sensor. We can like one of the electrode we can use as a temperature sensor as well in these kind of transistors. So most of the transistors, like the pH sensor, they already have inbuilt temperature sensor into that, so that they are calibrated with the temperature as well.
Dibagar is asking, surface plasmon resonance technique is also used to detect biosensor. So how much is useful? What is the new trend coming in detection?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, people have done. I think a lot of people are doing, and my colleagues in PhD they were doing this surface plasmon as well. The challenge again, like surface plasmon is a big machine. So I mean, I'm talking about more like portable kind of thing, so that everybody can use that. But yeah, that sensitivity is but the concept is same. In the surface plasmon, again, you need the antibodies and then you need the biomolecules. When the small molecules comes in, they change the peak in the surface plasmon, like the dip in your absorbance, and then you can sense that. But still you need like the operating pupil for that, because it cannot be miniaturized. Surface plasma, you need the big like the what we call, I think, the prism or something, then top of that gold surface, and then you need to attach, and then you need a light incident laser, and then the output detector. So I think that makes little big, but yeah, people are using that.
Ashish Waluskar is asking, is CMOS technology also used for biosensors or only FET is used?
Because we don't need exactly CMOS, because CMOS is like complementary, like you need two transistors together, but we don't need that exactly. But yeah, people are trying. If there is a company in like IMEC in Belgium, so they are working to use this CMOS devices for the future DNA sequencing technology. So you can look on their website, but not yet used. CMOS is not yet used, but simple FETs are used, like single FETs.